What kind of literature do we need when the war is over? Do we need books that explain what happened to us, breaking down events and tracing causes? Or maybe we need beauty, a story that doesn't speak of horror but lets us breathe again. Or perhaps we need something as fragile as the life we had before to remind us once again how easily things can fall apart. Hi friends, and welcome. My name is Armen Zakharyan, and here on this young literary YouTube channel we speak about literature not less as a way to understand what it means to be a human. And today I want to tell you a story of this exact choice, a moment in history when this question, what do we read after the war, what do we value most, wasn't just philosophical. It was real. It came with votes, headlines, and outrage. It happened in 1919 in France, a nation of graves and ghosts at that time, a nation who just lost hundreds of thousands of men in a 4-year massacre of the First World War. France, grieving a generation lost, was trying to remember how to live. Books, of course, were pouring in, novels written by those who survived, by those who saw it all, books about blood, brotherhood, trenches, and truth. And they all were competing for the most important literary prize in the country, the Goncourt, the first prize to be awarded after the war. All eyes turned to it. But among many war novels, there was one strange contender, a book that spoke not of gunfire, but of gardens, not of death, but of desire. A book that followed a young man through summer evenings, through secret glances and jealous hearts. It was a book about a life long lost, a life many years before the war, a life so distant, so delicate that reading it felt almost wrong, as if while the soil in the country still wept with blood, someone dared to speak of perfumes, music, of the nature of memory, of the shifting light on a seaside walk. That book was the second volume of In Search of Lost Time, Within a Budding Grove, by a man who had never gone to war, who was too sick to get up, and who seemed to write not with ink, but with memory itself. His name was Marcel Proust. As the vote approached, two frontrunners began to emerge, and with them, two radically different visions of what literature should be now that the war was over. On one side, Wooden Crosses by Roland Dorgelès, a raw, painful novel written by a man who had fought during the war. It was filled with mud, death, and honest testimony. Even its first line spoke for itself. At that time of year, flowers were already rare, but there were still enough to decorate the rifles of the platoon leaving for reinforcement, and the battalion, crowded like a vast cemetery, with flowers, marched through the city between two silent rows of onlookers. Dorgelès didn't just write about the war, no, he had lived it. His book captured what France had just lived through. And on the other side was Marcel Proust, with a painfully beautiful and remote scene from a vast and delicate universe of the past. No blood, no battles, just the deep shimmer of a lost time. André had a pair of eyes of extraordinary brightness, like in a dark house, a glimpse through an open door of a room into which the sun is shining with a greenish reflection from the glittering sea. That was Proust. And in 1919, the choice between them wasn't just literary. It was a question of grieving, of healing, of what kind of truth the society was ready to face. The debate started long before the final vote, and it only grew louder when the results came in. 6 votes against 4 for Marcel Proust and his beauty. For many, it didn't feel just like a prize, it felt like a provocation. How could a book about first love, which happened many years ago in a small town by the sea, win over a book about war and death? Newspapers called it an insult to the war heroes. Patriots were furious. How could they, instead of crowning a man covered in mud, reward the one covered in perfumes? Even the publisher of wooden crosses joined the protest. On posters promoting the novel, he proudly printed Goncourt Prize, and just below, in small letters, 4 votes out of 10. It was a literary rebellion. However, there was part of the society who supported Proust's cause, because they knew that after years of smoke and death, perhaps what the soul needed most was not more horror, but a hint of harmony. They believed that beauty, too, could be a form of testimony. They saw in Proust's delicate prose a resistance of another kind, not against the enemy, but against forgetting that the light had existed and might exist again. Proust's book was not an escape from history, it was a defense of everything history tried to erase. And yes, the vote was not one-sided, it was a very close victory, and that alone says a lot. It tells us that the country was torn not just by literature, but by the very function of literature. Should literature help us grieve or remind us how to live? The thing is that both novels did something vital. Both had truth in them. So, what kind of literature do we need when the war is over? Is it the story that makes us remember and eventually heal the pain, or the one that reminds us why we survived it? What is out there to live for? I believe that we need both. You see, literature, alas, cannot save us from the war. It can't stop the war or even prevent it. By the 21st century, we have seen enough proof of that already. But there's something literature can do. It can remind us what mattered before everything broke, and what might still matter after. It can remind us of how to remain human. It can remind us the beauty of the world is still there, and it's waiting for us to return. Thank you for being with me today. If you found something meaningful in this story, please share it, subscribe, leave a comment, send it to a friend. This is a fresh channel, we're just beginning, and every small gesture helps us keep going, helps us remember why we've started. And for now, call me Armin, and I'll see you next time.